The cold wind whipped across the empty parking lot as Marcus tightened the worn straps of his backpack, the weight of his entire life dragging against his slumped shoulders. He had reached the very edge of what he could bear, another rejection, another failed attempt to start over, another reminder that no matter how hard he tried, the world wasn't willing to forgive him. The sun was dipping behind the old brick buildings of a small town in Ohio, staining the sky with a shade of burnt orange that made everything look like the ending of something. Marcus could almost hear the words echoing in the silence, "You're done. This is it." He was about to walk away, ready to disappear, ready to stop trying, when a child's small, tired eyes lifted toward him. In that instant, something shifted. Something he didn't understand. That look stopped him cold. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us keep creating stories that touch the heart. Marcus had come to this town hoping it would offer him a fresh start after years of trying to outrun the mistakes that had cost him his job, his home, and nearly his dignity. He had taken buses from state to state, slept in shelters, and done odd jobs just to get by. But nothing had stuck. Every time he tried to rebuild, life found a way to remind him he wasn't the man he once believed he could be. This day had been no different. He had walked into a local construction company, his resume crumpled and faded, but his hopes still alive. He had stood before the manager, a broad-shouldered man named Rick, who didn't even bother to look up when he said, "Sorry, we're not hiring." It was said without hesitation, without second thought, without mercy. Marcus had felt the last bit of hope slip from his hands. That was why he was ready to leave town, to disappear like he always did when things went wrong. But then he saw her. A little girl standing by an old silver van, bundled in a pink jacket, her small fingers rubbing at her eyes as if she'd been crying. She looked no older than 7. Her curly hair was tied in a lopsided ponytail, and her backpack hung so low it nearly touched the ground. She had been staring at him from across the cracked pavement, her expression filled with something he couldn't name. Not fear. Not curiosity. It was something gentler, something like recognition, though they had never met. Their eyes held for a moment, and Marcus, despite his own exhaustion, felt compelled to walk closer. He wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the way she didn't look away, even when he got near. Maybe it was because she looked lost, the way he felt. Maybe it was because her tiny voice whispered, barely audible in the wind, "Are you okay?" The words stunned him, not because she said them, but because no one had asked him that in years. He swallowed hard, insisting he was fine, but she shook her head as if she could see straight through him. Then the van door opened, and a woman stepped out, hurrying toward the girl with frustration etched into her tired face. She apologized for her daughter staring, urging her back inside, but the little girl lingered long enough to glance at Marcus one last time. That look stayed with him. It was as if, somehow, she could see his pain. Marcus walked away slowly, but something inside him wouldn't let him leave town. He spent the night at a small community shelter on the outskirts, a place managed by volunteers who spent their evenings serving warm meals to people society often ignored. He wasn't expecting kindness there, he had stopped expecting that anywhere, but that evening, an older woman named Teresa handed him a bowl of soup and said softly, "You look like someone who's forgotten how strong he really is." Her words, much like the girl's gaze, tugged at places inside him he had boarded up long ago. The following morning, Marcus wandered through the town, unsure of what he was looking for. He saw the same silver van parked outside a modest 2-story house with peeling white paint and toys scattered on the porch. As he walked past, he heard frantic voices inside. Something wasn't right. Instinct took over. Marcus moved closer, and through the window he saw the little girl, the same one from yesterday, crying on the kitchen floor, clutching her arm while her mother, who looked overwhelmed and barely keeping herself together, tried to soothe her. When the woman ran out to her car, searching desperately for her keys, Marcus stepped forward without thinking and offered to help. The girl had fallen from a chair and possibly fractured her arm. The mother, whose name was Claire, looked torn between fear and embarrassment as she agreed to let Marcus drive them to the hospital in their van, her hands trembling too much to drive safely. During the ride, the girl rested her head on Marcus's arm and whispered that her name was Hannah. She said she was used to being brave because her mom had too much to manage alone. She said her dad wasn't around anymore, but she didn't say why. Though the child's words were simple, they carried a weight heavier than Marcus expected. He saw pieces of his own childhood in her, loneliness, uncertainty, and a quiet longing for safety. At the hospital, Marcus stayed with them as long as he could. When the doctor confirmed it was only a minor fracture, Claire broke down in relief. She kept apologizing, thanking Marcus repeatedly, but he just shook his head, unsure of how to respond. Then Hannah, still pale from the pain, said the words that cracked something open inside him, "Mom, he saved me. We should help him too." Claire looked confused at first, but then Hannah explained in her small, trembling voice that she had seen Marcus yesterday, the way he looked when he was walking away, like he didn't want to exist anymore. She said she knew that feeling because sometimes she felt invisible too. Those words, spoken without filter or fear, hit Marcus so deeply he had to look away. Claire asked him gently if Hannah was right. Marcus didn't answer, but silence was enough. From that moment, something changed. Claire offered him a place to stay temporarily, in their spare room above the garage. She said she didn't have money to give, but she had kindness, and sometimes that was worth even more. Marcus wanted to refuse, out of pride, shame, the belief that he didn't deserve help, but Hannah wrapped her small arms around him and whispered, "Please stay. We need you." That simple truth, spoken with a child's purity, broke the final wall around his heart. Over the next weeks, Marcus slowly found himself becoming a part of their lives. He fixed broken steps on their porch, repaired leaking pipes, helped Claire organize her late father's tools in the garage. In return, Claire cooked warm meals, offered him quiet understanding, and gave him space to heal. Hannah followed him everywhere, smiling brighter each day, insisting he read stories to her each night. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. Each morning brought sunlight he hadn't noticed before, music he hadn't remembered hearing, and a sense of purpose that he thought had died long ago. One day, Claire handed him an envelope. Inside was a job application. Rick, the construction manager who had turned him away, had heard about what Marcus did for Claire and Hannah. He was willing to give him another chance. Marcus felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude, but with Hannah cheering him on and Claire looking at him with quiet trust, he filled out the form. He got the job. It wasn't glamorous, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. It was stability. It was the beginning of a life he thought he'd lost forever. As the days turned into months, Marcus transformed from a man running from his past into someone building a future. Claire began smiling more, Hannah healed, and their home slowly filled with the warmth of a family, something none of them had expected. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying, and for the first time, trying felt enough. But the moment that completed his transformation happened on a quiet Saturday morning. Hannah walked up to him with her freshly healed arm, wrapped gently around his waist, and said, "You didn't walk away. I'm glad." He knelt beside her, tears filling his eyes, realizing that this child, this small, brave soul, had saved him just as much as he had saved her. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who need hope in their darkest moments. Before the ending, please leave a special comment below telling us, second chances are real. Marcus stayed. He grew. He healed. And all because a child looked at a stranger with empathy strong enough to change the path of a broken man's life. Sometimes, it doesn't take grand gestures or perfect people to restore someone's hope. Sometimes, all it takes is a single moment, a single look, from a child who sees what the world has forgotten. And in that moment, everything changed.